see that it's such a wonderful coincidence, his name being Antoun. It wouldn't be so bad if he were in love with her, but it's Biddy who is always right in everything she says and does, according to him, just as I am always wrong. Aunt Clara is richer than Biddy. I can't bear to fancy that's why he has proposed. It would take away all the romance." "Don't strip him of his romance yet," said I, torn again between interest in Monny's incredible statement, and excitement which grew with the growing in size of those flags on the horizon. "You may wrong him. If you saw only the first part of the letter, there could be no mistake. It was in hieroglyphics, and who but Antoun would have written such a letter to Aunt Clara? She asked me to translate it, the night she dug it up at Fustat. And when I'd read as far as 'Beautiful Queen, star of my heart, be my wife,' she snatched the paper away, and put it inside of her dress, saying she'd look up the rest in one of my books." "Good heavens! You must have changed places at Fustat. That letter couldn't have been for her." "It couldn't have been for any one else. 'Beautiful Queen' meant Cleopatra. She said so herself. I don't know what she's going to do about it." "Do about it?" I echoed desperately. "Why—" And just then my straining eyes saw that on the middle flag in the fluttering row were 4 large red letters on a white ground. Slaney had betrayed me! Everything depended on getting that flag down before those letters declared themselves to my other eyes. "Excuse me," I finished my sentence with a gasp. Monny must have gasped also, as she saw me suddenly dash away from her at full speed of 1 camel power. But I had no time to think about what she must think. I suppose I must have done something to the steering gear of that camel, which coastguard camels do not permit. Whatever it was, it got me into the midst of that camp before I could draw breath, but I have a dim recollection of being caught by Arab arms, and seeing suppressed Arab grins, as I melancholy felt to see how far the end of my spine stuck out at the top of my head. "That flag! Pull it down!" was my first gasp, pointing convulsively to the banner which shrieked "Cook!" "Before they come!" Dazed by my vehemence, several Arabs scuttled to obey the order, but there were too many of them. Each hindered his neighbour, and as I danced about, making matters worse, out pounced our withered chef from the kitchen tent. "It was he brought that flag, wrapped round something," exclaimed one of the men in Arabic. "When he saw that we had other flags, but none of Cook, he gave it to us to put over the biggest tent, because he thought it shameful to have no flag of the master's." "Cook isn't the master, I'm it," I burbled with a leap to catch the telltale square of white as it reluctantly came down. But I was too late. Sir John Biddle and Harry Snell, the newspaper man, came gallumping up on their camels before I could stuff the flag in my pocket. "What's the matter?" they asked, as their animals squatted to let them down. "Were you run away with? What are you so mad about? Hullo, what's that flag? C-O-O-K. It should be over the kitchen tent," I heard myself explaining. "Don't you see? Cook. It's the cook's special flag. He brought it himself, but these chaps went and flew it over the dining tent in place of the Union Jack. That's why he and I are mad." And I thanked all the stars on Monny's tent flag that none of the set understood Arabic. After this, how could I hope to explain to Monny that the hieroglyphic proposal was mine, and that she, not Cleopatra, ought to have dug it up? She isn't a girl used to having men run away from her, on camel-back or anything else, so naturally she thought me a rude beast, and showed it. Besides, even if I'd dared, I should have had no chance to straighten matters out, for though the flag episode was after all no fault of Slaney's, there were a few little things which had escaped even his Napoleonic memory, and it was only by combining the feats of an acrobat with those of a juggler that I saved my reputation during the next half hour. No sight could have been more beautiful in our eyes than that village of white tents in the waste of yellow sand. Our wildest imaginings could have pictured nothing more perfect, more peaceful. Tea was ready, in the huge dining tent, where folding chairs were grouped round a white-coloured table. The floor of sand was hidden with thick, bright-coloured rugs, and it was finding T.C. and Son on the wrong side of one which Miss Hassett Bean's foot turned up, that filled me with renewed alarms. Hastily I laid the rug straight, placed a chair upon it, and persuaded everybody to have tea before inspecting their bedroom tents. While they drank draughts and dabbled jam on an Egyptian conception of scones, I hurried like a haggard ghost from tent to tent, seeking the forbidden thing. Cook on the backs of the little mirrors hanging from the pole hooks. Will it wash off? Cut it out with a penknife. Down on your knees and tear off the label from the wrong side of another carpet. Memo. Must do the one in the dining tent when the people are asleep for the night. cram 3 cooked towels into my pockets, hastily pin a handkerchief over the name on a white bit of tent wall. Must have it cut out and patched with something later. Shall have to pay damages when I settle up with Slaney. Lady Macbeth wasn't in it with me. All she needed was a little water. I have to have pens and penknives and pockets all over the place. I didn't get any tea, but that was a detail. And everybody was so delighted with everything that my spirits rose, despite a snub or two from Monny, for which Biddy tried to make up. People took desert strolls, or sat on dunes, and gazed into the sunset which couldn't have been better if I had turned it on myself. Along the western horizon ran a pale flame of green blending with rose blending with amethyst, and in the distance the pyramids of Dahshur burned with the red of pigeon blood rubies. The wind had died among the desert dunes, and it was not till after dinner that anyone realized the arctic fall of the temperature. It was too cold to enjoy playing bridge or any of the games I had brought, and the only hope of comfort was in bed. People said good night to each other in the comparatively warm dining tent, and then gave surprised shrieks or grunts according to sex, at the piercing cold. Several of the elder ladies fell over tent ropes, despite the large lanterns illuminating the desert, and had to be escorted to their bedroom tents and soothed. After this, silence reigned for a few minutes, and I had stealthily begun to work on the biggest rug label, when arose a clamour of voices, and presently appeared the dragoman lent by Slaney. 8 ladies wishing hot water bottles, he explained. But there were no hot water bottles. We had thought of everything, it seemed, except hot water bottles. I tell them very sorry, but can't have? Yusuf suggested, looking pleased. Let me think, I groaned. What about the mineral water bottles we emptied at lunch and dinner? Let the cook boil water, and we'll supply the bottles. This was done, and I was proud of the inspiration, with the pride that comes before a fall. When I began to write, in my bedroom tent, wrapped up in all the blankets of the bed that should be Anthony's, I had the place to myself. But about midnight a head was unexpectedly thrust through the door flap. It looked ghostly in the haze of colour made by the gorgeous appliqué work of high roof and octagon walls, which gave an effect of sitting at the bottom of a giant kaleidoscope. "Who's that?" I hissed, in a whisper meant to be discreet, but which roused a camel or two in the ring outside the tents. "Biddle, Sir John Biddle," replied the head. "I saw your light, and remembered that you had your tent to yourself tonight. Those hot water bottles have been leaking. There's one, at least, gone wrong in most of the ladies' tents. The married men have given their beds to the girls who are drowned out. 'Twas your idea about those bottles, wasn't it? I expect you'll hear from it in the morning. 3 of us want to come and camp in here with you." "All right," I sighed, with a sinking heart. "I like sitting up, and you can toss for the cots." At this moment Sir John Biddle reposes in one of them, General Harlow in the other. These gentlemen were so affected with the cold that they went to bed in their clothes, then got up to put on their overcoats, then got up again and put on their hats. On the floor lies a certain Mills of Manchester, rolled in all the rugs, except one which I have on, after surrendering my blankets. He has his head in a basket to keep off the icy draught, and in the ruggy region of his spine, as he rests on his side, are the letters COOK. I wonder if I could rip them off without waking him up? End of chapter 14, part 2.